Here I am taking my wife's car through the car wash. So I had a bit of a lineup here, so I just thought I'd do a quick video on a follow-up and review of our last coffee chat meeting. Our coffee chat meeting was on setting priorities. It was a great meeting. We had about 15 people there, which is a good size that nobody feels left out. And what we did is we went around the room with introductions and comments. And I'm just going to let you know about a few comments that were made that I thought were interesting. I not necessarily agree with them, but very interesting in what people had to share. First one was, our priorities are best to be our priorities and not the priorities of others or the priorities of society. Somebody else said that often we can get busy, so busy that we forget what our priorities are. Somebody else said that we're not responsible for other people's happiness. And living in the present moment can help us with that. Somebody else said that when working the job she had, it was easier for her to set priorities because things were more regimented. Whereas now when she's retired, it's harder to do that. But sort of getting back to that is important though. Okay, what next? Running daily lists can help. Getting involved in personal development can help. And books, such as the one that was mentioned was The Traveler's Gift. I've never heard of the book, but it sounds interesting. Somebody else said that she has the tendency to want to set other people's priorities, and that distracts her from her own priorities. That having a child certainly helps with the setting of priorities, and the child also helps with seeing what is important, and in her case, getting in touch with her own inner child, seeing what's important in life. Somebody else mentioned that priorities are often pressured by other people. So those are basically other people's priorities, right? And it's important to keep calm in order to remember our priorities. Otherwise, we become reactive, right? Instead of proactive, I guess. Somebody else mentioned that it's great to hang out with other people who are priority type people, like birds of a feather flock together, so we can become more prioritized ourselves. And he mentioned that his wife is happier when he has a direction in his life. He also said that you can't serve anyone unless we can serve ourselves in our priorities to get our own lives together, right? Somebody else mentioned that being a parent, or mother in this case, makes it a bit of a challenge to prioritize one's life. I guess I'm going to add to this, unless we see the children as our priority, and then that's a priority for us, right? Somebody else mentioned that he doesn't really set priorities. They're sort of innate, because he has some sort of a foundational principles inside, and they kind of come up as they are, and he's been quite successful with that. A couple other books that were mentioned. There were a couple of books that were mentioned. Let me see what else. The Art of Skillful Living. I thought there was another one there somewhere. Maybe not. Have a look in the write-up too, because I might have been a little more detailed in there. Now, I also shared some stuff of my own that wasn't my own necessarily, but some comments that I made. Now, I have had the tendency to become very scattered in life and too many things on the go, and when that happens, nothing's a priority, it seems like, and nothing gets done well. Whereas if I prioritize and get down to one or two important tasks, things get done more and done more effectively. And this all reminds me of that book that I read a number of years ago, and I still have it somewhere. It's called, I think it was called The 4-Minute Workweek by a guy named Tim Ferriss. And basically this has a lot to do with prioritization, in terms of his basic point is that we can get a week's work done in a heck of a lot less time than we normally spend, because we're just running around doing a bunch of things that are not priorities. And he talks about how, forget about retirement and what you want to do someday. Do it now. Figure out a way to do it now. Prioritize for it now. Now, although this had a lot to do with entrepreneurs, because that's his approach to things, to life, entrepreneurial approach, a lot of what he talks about could be applied to anything. And I just picked out some thoughts that he had, that I picked out on the internet to do with the book. Some points. He talks about how to outsource, or delegate, or things that are, because sometimes we want to do it all ourselves, right? And he talks about how to quit your job and travel the world, how to convince the boss that we should stay home and get paid anyway. I like that one. And of course, that has to do with a lot of jobs now that can be, work from home, essentially, right? How to eliminate 50% of the current work that we're doing. A lot of stuff we do is just, piffle. It's not necessary. It's just running around and making more work for ourselves. He talks about how to trade the long-haul career for a work of bursts and many mini retirements. How to automate cash flow. How to cultivate what he calls selective ignorance, or in the book I remember him calling it the low information diet. Sometimes we're just overwhelmed with all kinds of information, and he talks about how just limit it down to the most important and get on with it. Which leads to the next one, how to remote control the details. So many times we're pushing around details like mad and drives us nuts. And then of course he talks about how to fill the void of all that extra time. You're only working 4 hours a week. Well, he talks about adding meaningful activities which really make life so much worthwhile, the away from the office and work kind of time, right? So that was Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. And another book that reminded me of this, and I never actually read it, I've read parts of it, and I've read excerpts, and I've read book reviews, but I quite like the concept. The book is written by a lady named Bronnie Ware, and she was a palliative care nurse in Australia, I believe, for many years, 20-something years. And she took the time to remember the top 5 regrets that people often have in their dying days, their last few days. Because so many people, so many of us, we just don't live the lives that we wanted to live, right? And she talked, so I'm just going to list them, that I just looked them up on the internet here. I wish I'd had the courage to live the life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That was number 1. And number 2 was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. How many people have said that? And of course, along the lines of that 4-hour work week, so much of our work is just ineffective work. So if we were to cut out that and be more effective in what really matters, we wouldn't work so much. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. And she mentioned that this was mostly men who would say this, because she said some of these big, strong men who were on their dying days, they become like, they really truly start to live. Imagine that, truly start to live in your dying days. Wow. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I mean, my goodness. I'll talk a little bit about this in a few minutes on another thing, but we just let people go, so at the end, there's nobody around. Weird. I wish I'd let myself be happier. And this, of course, comes down to the first one. I wish I'd lived the life that I really wanted to live, because happiness seems to come out of how we live, right? I thought that was important too. So the book is called the Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Another thing that I didn't mention at the meeting, but I mentioned it in the write-up, had to do with just yesterday. I was at a Toastmasters International contest, which I actually was in myself, which I presented in. And there was a lady who did a very wonderful presentation there about how she talked about, she had 3 chairs up there, and each chair was to represent somebody sitting there who she had known in how they had lived their lives. And how they lived their lives was she represented by what their funeral was like at the end, how many people were around. And the first one she talked about was a person who wasn't a very happy individual, I guess. And basically her funeral might as well not have occurred, because there was basically nobody there. A really shame in a way, really, eh? And then the middle one was sort of halfway there. And then the end one was somebody else she had known, who, when she died, there was standing room only, and there was a lineup out the door, and there were people who, even the staff at the hospital came to the funeral kind of thing. And her question was basically, how do we live our lives? What's our priority in life? And I would say, and she didn't say this, but I would posit that one of the reasons why people showed up at the end to this individual in spades is because they felt that part of this lady's priority included them. And to me, there's nothing more heartfelt than that, almost. It's really quite profound. So I would say it was a great meeting. It's an important topic to come up with. It's an important topic for us to keep on asking ourselves and getting clear for ourselves. What is our priority in life? What is our priority in life? What is our priority in life? And there seems to be no limit to how many times we can ask that, because we can always chisel down and get more clear on what is our priority, bigger picture, and in individual tasks and individual goals on a daily basis. What is the priority? And if we can become more effective at prioritizing, well, we'll just be more effective in life. And how this affects our quality of life, of course, is if we're more effective in life, then we can have a life that's along the lines of what we intended. And if we value quality, and then our intention's going to lead to that. So I think it's all important. It's great chatting again, great meeting, and look forward to it soon again. We're going to have Mark Willems doing a presentation at our next meeting along the lines of something to do with being a knight, being a strong and directed knight. It's going to be a good presentation. He's always very entertaining and creative. Look forward to it, and talk to you again soon. Bye-bye for now.